All right. Hi, I'm John Hartmann. I am the digital editor for US Chess Online, and we're here today doing our first author interview with Grandmaster Boris Avrukh, who is currently in Chicago by way of Israel and Russia. So, Grandmaster Avrukh, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And
Hi, John. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
thank you. So we are here to talk about your book, which is just out from Quality Chess. It's part of your Grandmaster Repertoire series on D4, and it's the fourth of 4 volumes. This is your 10th opening book, correct?
That's correct.
And
But by the way, I haven't received my author copies yet. It's on the way, so you you have even before
I'm
me.
breaking news here for you, yeah. So I guess the first question, these books, and we did a review of this in the June issue of Chess Life, which is the occasion for us talking to you today. I wrote the review, so I feel safe telling you it's a good review. I like the book a lot. Fascinating opening ideas, a lot of new ideas and some pretty tricky lines for us D4 players. But I can imagine it must be a very, very hard thing to write an opening book.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, first of all, many thanks. I think it was like very, very nice review, very professional. You were able to dig into some some improvements, some interesting line that I have changed to compare with with my first edition. That was really great. Yes. Well, I have to say that I kind of got used to this, to writing the books. It's like every year, basically, I was like releasing one book since 2008, when I released my first volume of first edition. So, well, of course, like the first book was not so easy, but then it was like I get used to this kind of work, and thanks to this great publishing house, Quality Chess, and all the group of the people there, John Shaw, Jacob Agard, Andrew Greed, I was very flexible. So basically, like there was some kind of deadline, but if something was happening, I was just like, Jacob, I need 1 more month, no problem, Boris, So like I was very flexible, no pressure, and that's allowed me, to work with my pace. So I was able to teach, I was able to play tournaments when I was active, and so on. So it was amazing experience. It was amazing experience. I think, well, this is maybe a little bit unfortunate, but I think most of the chess players, they know me from the books more than like my player and like, well, being world champion under 12 or having a peak rating 2668. But really, most of the players, like in the world, they know me after my books. And,
Absolutely,
you know, like almost every day I get on Facebook, some guys approaching me and saying, well, Boris, thank you very much. I have your books. It's helped tremendously my openings.
So the first 2 books, the first 2 books you wrote were about the D4 repertoire, but it was 2 volumes. And then, so after that, was that the Grunfeld books that you did next?
Yes.
Okay.
For Black.
Yeah, so 2 volumes on the Grunfeld, and then the Classical Slav.
Correct.
And then D4 deviations.
Sidelines.
Yeah, so
Sidelines.
anything that D4 players might face, or D4, D5 players. Do you cover Knight of 6 too?
It's basically everything without second move C4, but for all setups.
Oh, okay.
So basically, for those who play fianchetto, for those who play Slav and Queen, so starts D5, and for those who start Knight F6. So it was covering like all 3 main setups, major setups for Black.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly, but I thought that was the case. So sort of universal, anti-London, anti-Trompowsky, anything
correct.
like that.
Yes, that's correct.
So that was 6 books, and now you've taken those first 2 books, and you've expanded it out to 4 volumes. So why did you feel the need to expand an already really complicated repertoire out even further?
Well, to be honest, this was the decision of the publishing house, Quality Chess. They felt like it's so much more information nowadays, and they just felt like, well, okay, we need 4 books. It was a tough decision, but they felt like, I guess it's a market decision for them. So they knew that the first edition was very successful, with all these names that they call like Bible of Chess. And then at some point, I don't know if you know this story, they implemented the verb which to Avrukh.
Yes.
to Avrukh.
Yeah, I think you
like it's more common in Europe. So basically, what does it mean is just to get advantage or trick somebody in the opening, according to my books.
it's filtered down here to the Midwest. I mean, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and I play regionally, so I'll play in Iowa and a little bit in Kansas and places like that. And every now and again, I hear that someone Avrukhed someone else.
Yeah, so now it's getting popular in the US already. Yeah, so that's great.
So the last volume. So basically, if let me see if I can break it down pretty concisely. 1A and 1B deal with D4, D5 lines. So 1A is Catalan lines, an opening that really, I think it was, as I said in the review, I think it was getting bigger when you wrote Grandmaster Repertoire 1 back in 2008, but all of a sudden everybody started playing it after that book came out.
Yes.
And so 1B then deals with some anti-Slav lines, like
and
the Tarash, and Slav lines, correct. So basically anything that wouldn't fit under the Catalan rubric. 2A would be about the King's Indian and the Grunfeld.
Yeah, all the fianchetto.
Right, and then 2B is basically everything else, as I say in the review, that D4 players hate to face.
Right.
Benko, Budapest.
It depends. There are two different approaches.
Okay.
Like for instance, like at the high level, you probably hate to face like mainstream lines because it's very hard to get advantage. It's very hard to find like playable ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, but yeah, I see how the players, when I work with all the students, I think until level 2100, 2200, they much more worried about sidelines.
Yeah, certainly.
No experience, like we haven't studied this. And I was like, I always very happy to play something like Dodge, Benko, Benoni. So that's always a pleasure for me,
Interesting. Well, it's interesting for us to think about as lower rated players that, you as a grandmaster are more worried when we play real things as opposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also because of my work with the top guys, like Kramnik, Arana, when they just gave me like this task, find the playable idea here, like in mainstream Slav, and it was really, really hard job, So
yeah. So one of the things I noticed when reading this is that you really put a lot of research into it. And one of the things that I've seen in your books, but in quality chess books in particular, is you cite a lot of correspondence games. So why do you think that's so important? Why do you take the time to define these games and then cite them in your books?
Well, you cannot nowadays you cannot deviate from those games. It's basically correspondence games. It's this is the highest possible level nowadays. I mean, there are some games that they literally play stronger than Carlsen. So basically, the guys sitting with engines and checking every move for a few hours. So that's an extreme extreme level of precision, and like how you can recommend something, then like everyone can get this correspondence game and there is a refutation of this line. So you cannot do this, right? So you have to get to this correspondence game, and but the biggest challenge, how you can improve on those games. That's the question. So you have a line for white that you want to show that it's a playable line and you want to recommend, and suddenly there is a game from correspondence chess which is like draw, and it seems like a forced draw. It's just you run the engine and you see all the best lines. That's the biggest challenge.
So then how do you deal with that? I mean, if you find that a correspondence game seems to have taken one of your ideas to a dead end, how do you?
Well, so I try to find something which is not dead end, and let's say show just some playable continuation.
Okay.
And then I believe with the help of my explanation, my book, my lines, so you can get like much more like understanding of this position and have advantage in practical chess.
Okay.
Have advantage in practical chess, because my approach is like from my experience with working with the top guys, that every mainstream line should be equal at the end, like especially with the help of the engines nowadays, the super engines. So like I try just to show some idea which is playable, which is not like lead by force to some drawish endgame or some repetition. So that's already some achievement.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about engines as part of that, and I'm curious, I mean, obviously when you're writing this, you have to use the engine to check things. We talked a little bit off camera, so I know you're using Stockfish. Have you gotten a chance to use Leela? This new?
Not yet. To be honest, I just yesterday I heard from one of my students from Singapore. He's like very advanced player, I think Grandmaster level, but like he's international master right now. But he's like very good in technology. So he mentioned this Lila new engine, and I still have no idea about this. That's.
So you're gonna have to put out a third edition after you use Leela to check everything for the third time.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if it's worth to do this. I mean, we will see. I mean, so far it's very interesting. I have been using just Stockfish 8.
Okay.
And so that's kind of surprising, but I got some information from a friend of mine who is currently working with the top guy, so I don't want to reveal the names. So he mentioned that Stockfish 9 is much worse, like in his words, it's worse than Stockfish 8. Maybe he doesn't know how to change some features there, but I know that it's always exaggeration in evaluations, right? I mean,
interesting, yeah. So yeah, Stockfish does have contempt built into it, so
yeah, but somewhere you cannot change the contempt, and I think Stockfish 10 you can change, right? As far as I understand.
A little bit, yeah. It's there's actually two forms of contempt in there. One is sort of you can change just in the UCI settings. The second is kind of baked in, and it's not to get technical, but it's sort of as the evaluation rises, it adds to the evaluation a little bit more as its evaluation goes up. So it's basically trying to convince itself it's winning more and more as it thinks the position is better and better.
Right. So yes, I'm a little bit away now from this work that I used to do, like let's say since 1997 for 10 years, where I was working with top guys. Then of course it's really required like top engines. Nowadays it's much more, the players, let's say until level 2200, like it's probably 95% of my students. So Stockfish 8 is kind of like a solid engine, and I just a big believer. It's about how much time you spend, how much time you allow to run the engine, and then like the right lines to expand. The right line to expand. It's always like if you start expanding, it will be much more precise, right?
Interesting.
So, yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you are doing a lot of teaching now. You're in Chicago, and one of the things that I read in the preface to the book is that this is going to be your last book for a while.
So they even included this in the preface. I didn't know.
I think it's in there. I don't know if it's preface or introduction. I'm not sure what it's called, but in the book you do mention that you're going to sort of semi-retire from the opening book genre. So why are you taking a break from writing?
Yeah, I think it was actually like it's a nice number, 10 books. Yeah, so like you nicely put this in your review, so it's some kind of like end of an era, right?
Yeah.
So and I just want to try some new projects. So one of my ideas, and I believe it will be launched during the summer. I don't know exactly the dates because I'll be busy with the camps and other stuff. So I want to launch a web page. So right now it's a web page, maybe at some point app as well. Where I'm gonna publish opening materials for the players of let's say starting from the let's say expert. I would say let's say 1400 USF to 2200 USF.
Wow.
So to cover this level.
Okay.
Because I think it's a lot of customers and those players they need a lot of expertise in the openings. Already from 2200, I think it's much more like professional players. They know how to work. So I have this idea. I think I can use my name. So it's like in some way it's kind of brand, because once my name is mentioned, everyone said, oh, well, we know Boris Avrukh books. So the name of the webpage will be askavrukh.com.
I like it. That's really good.
Yeah, so it's an interesting idea. I want to try because for instance, I published a few opening materials in the webpage modernchess.com.
I was just about to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yes, and they're doing actually extremely well, but it's like very high level material, I have to admit. Opening databases, and they require very, very good coverage. I remember I sent the materials and they said, well, you're missing here a few points. So really guys, those guys pay a lot of attention to the quality of the material. There are some really good grandmasters publishing opening materials, so it's a really good web page. But hopefully there will be no conflict, because I want actually to target a little bit lower level until 2200. I think they have basically very high, like my books, I would say, like very high level material.
Yeah.
So, but I want to target lower level, and to make it much more easier. Let's say 1600, so I need less explanation and more, so less lines, but maybe more explanation and so on. So this is my idea.
Excellent. And so you were working with what was it, Chess Openings 24/7, this website?
Yes.
And
yes.
so that website is not in existence anymore.
Yeah, this didn't work, unfortunately.
Okay.
The whole idea didn't work, to have engine lines and like to go with the engine through opening lines. Eventually it didn't work. Yeah, eventually it didn't work. And
the nature of capitalism, right?
I guess one of the reasons was that like it was impossible to download chess-based files. Maybe that was a reason. So that they like, if you want to see the opening lines, you have to just to go to the web page and play over like web page. So you cannot really download PGN or CBW or whatever.
It's interesting because it seems that there's maybe even a trend towards that. I'm thinking of something like Chessable, which is getting so popular. But I mean, that's precisely why some publishers, I think, like Chessable, is that, you know, you can't download the PGN, and then you avoid the problem of someone, you know, passing it to their friends or.
Yes, so that's an interesting question, because I was debating and I was asking opinion of different friends. Should I provide downloadable PGN or not? So because of course I understand, and the same story by the way with the books. So that at some point some free version published on the internet is, well, with my books it's like that's a big problem, because I think like basically I know the schedule. 2 weeks after my book release there is a PDF version. and 2 months after this there is a chess-based version. So
it's high praise, I guess, that 2 weeks out someone has already taken it to the scanner and
who's doing this for free. So he's basically like scanning all my pages. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, it's as I say, maybe it's best to think of it as an honor. I don't know, but it's interesting to hear that you're going to be launching a new service this summer. You're also, I assume, you're teaching. You're still teaching, because I know you teach a lot of junior players in particular.
Right. So that's my main job right now. Nowadays, it's teaching. Especially, I finished with my work for the quality chess right now. Well, it's a break, or we'll see how it works. And yeah, I mean, I'm mostly teaching, so I really enjoy doing this. You know, there are many talented kids in the US, and I have some other countries as well, but mainly US. So it's nice.
And you're also getting to play a little bit. Now, I know you just played in your first tournament after a 2-year hiatus. So,
yes.
So it was the Chicago Open. How did it feel to be back at the board?
Well, it was very tough experience, to be honest. Maybe not so clever idea, but I just decided to give it a shot. So I literally haven't played a single game for 2 years. So not even a rapid chess. Well, okay, blitz here and there, but it doesn't count, of course. So very tough start. I think this is what screwed up my my ideas for this tournament. I lost in the first round to Canadian player who was 2250 rating, but I think like he was severely underrated, significantly underrated. He also mentioned that his Canadian rating over 2400. So it was tough, right? It was very tough. I played 2 good games, I have to be honest, but I dropped after 6 games. But you know, very interesting story that I want to tell you. When once in 2014, when I arrived to US, and my good friend Yuri Shulman, so whom I know from Soviet Union, so for many years. And, you know, once Chicago Open was approaching, the first Chicago Open in 2015, so I asked him, Yuri, so, like, are you going to play, of course? And he told me, no, I'm not going to play. So I said, how is possible? It's like 20 minutes from your house, such a major event with such a good prizes. And he said, like, I'm not mentally ready to play. I thought, what does it mean? I don't understand. and now after 5 years in the US, I perfectly understand what he meant back then, you know. So when you teach a lot and you're not working for yourself, I mean, it's very hard. It's very hard to get back and play good chess. Well, especially I think like US chess system, I used to play in Europe. It's much more relaxed schedule. You obviously know it's 1 game per day, so you can prepare. And here you have to be like in great physical shape. I mean, this is what like one of the things that I'm missing, obviously.
I think a lot of us suffer from that same affliction.
Yes. Yes. So even my previous Chicago Opens that I was doing pretty well in the beginning, but day 4 I was basically collapsing.
Yeah.
Just my brain stopped working, at the level of Grandmaster. So I was basically like losing the games. On the other hand, all weekend tournaments, I was doing pretty well in Chicago. I did pretty well. I had a good record. I won a few tournaments, second place. So like 2 days, I'm able to survive. So that's probably a better start. But I just decided, let's give a shot with Chicago Open. Probably 70% of my students had been playing in this tournament.
Wow.
I thought, okay, so let's see the students, let's meet parents, so I'll play. So, well, it was a tough experience, but just I was expecting, to be honest, I was expecting it might not go well.
Yeah.
So I was ready for this.
Well, I mean, a 2-year layoff.
Not like losing in the first round. That was
Yeah.
that was tough for me. Yes.
But I did ask you in our emailing back and forth if you wouldn't mind sharing a game, and despite having a difficult tournament, you agreed. So thank you for doing that. Do you mind pulling up the chess-based screen and showing us?
Yes. Yes.
All right. There we go. And there I am. Perfect.
So this is the game that I played. It was I think it was round 4. I played against local player Gopal Menon. So I have to mention also there is a very strange thing. I mean, I think it's pretty logical also, and it's easy to explain. But there are so many players that are like underrated here in US. I think the reason for that not every tournament is FIDE rated. So I play against this guy Gopal Menon, who is a local guy, and his rating is 22-40, maybe even less. But this is a joke because he's a good player. I would say. Like I just remember how I played in Europe, and all these players, it was basically easy wins. I was scoring about 99%. Maybe one game I was unable to win with black, but other than that, it was always like very easy start for me. So this is the player who I believe probably objectively, I would say his strength about 2400 FIDE. I don't know how it's possible.
He is. We've had him as a host on some of our live streams from some of our national events.
Yes, he's a great police player.
Yeah,
he's
very good analyst
in tactics. I played before in one of the weekends. I played a game with him. He played some new idea for me in the opening, and I was defending very well, and I got to draw. So like really good level games. So he's a really good player. So. Well, this game, I guess like everyone have this impression that I'm like super strong in the openings. So they try to avoid mainstream lines or let's say Catalan. As far as I know, I was expecting that his main repertoire is D5. I was expecting Catalan, but he surprised me with a 5. So something that I didn't expect. Well, I played my line according to the book. The line, I actually have, it's interesting, I have 2 recommendations against Leningrad because there is sometimes an issue with the move orders. Since black can start, let's say, first move d6 and then go f5 or g6 f5, so that was necessary to show like 2 different setups, 2 different move orders. But that's just the main line, and so my line, well, probably everyone knows that the main direction is c4. So, and I worked, and I was pretty happy with the work I have done, like for the book with b3 line. It's got like really popular. There are some improvements for black. Like overall, it's maybe it's not mainstream opening, but I have a lot of respect to Leningrad. Like in Dutch, I think it's very playable. I think it's also considered in some way the opening to play for a win for black.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. So b3, d6, bishop b2. He played. So one of the big fights here, like mainstream ideas for black, is try to deliver e5 one day. Obviously, like white's in white plans is to prevent this, not allow comfortable e5. And it's very interesting. Like we had this discussion. I checked right before our interview. I actually misplayed my move order from the book. And maybe I was actually fortunate to do this because he was probably ready for my move order. So I played c4. But well, the point here, this is I want to mention this point for maybe the students of who are just trying to get into serious openings. It's not always about like precise move order, especially when you play such a positional openings. It's more about ideas. It's more about ideas. So if you know ideas, understand the plans, setups, where the pieces should be placed, so you should be fine. You should be fine, even though like sometimes you misplay the move order. I mean, I'm talking especially for positional openings, let's say not Sicilian, because in Sicilian, if you misplay the move order, you might get crushed immediately, right? So,
right.
So in my book, I checked, I have knight bd2, and so here c4. I played c4, which is very natural, and I remember that in most of the lines, I have c4 move as a follow-up at some point, yes? And he played queen c7, and to be honest, it's very funny that I don't remember always like 100% of material from my books again, but of course I remember setups, I remember the idea, but quite often I just don't remember like exactly the lines. So it's so much material nowadays, right? So queen c7, I just knew that this is something that thanks to Nakamura, it's got really fashionable in those directions. So that's kind of like new idea. Queen c7, rook e8, and quick e5, and of course like much more common setup with the queen on e8. It's used to be like mainstream lines, but nowadays there are many interesting like sidelines for black. So maybe queen c7 is not a sideline anymore. And so I just remember that the ideal rook e8, follow up rook e8, and then e5. So I decided I decided to clarify the situation in the center and to play d5. So not allowing to have e5, d5, d5 pawn structure, obviously, right? So d5, I think from what I checked, the main move in this position, knight a6. But then I thought there is an extra option for me. I can always go knight d4, knight c3, and just have a regular setup. So that's a very thematic play for this kind of Leningrad positions. So he played e5 right away. So this is very natural as well. e5, d5, bishop e6. I like to play against this pawn structure. For white, actually, it's even better when the pawn on f7 maybe, so because it's less control, there is no control of the center. So I believe it's always easier to handle these positions with white because black is not very active. It's very hard for black to start to show some activity on the king side. It should be something like with f4, but anytime I can place my pawn on e3 and just capture on f4 with the pawn e, and that it's still staying like very safe on the king side. So here I just I knew that normal play would be knight c3 or knight d4, and then just develop the pieces, maybe eventually placing the pawn to e3, rooks to d1, c1. But I found this interesting idea, knight g5. I played knight g5. So it's I still haven't checked like in details with engine, but and I don't want to ruin my beautiful strategy. So I played knight g5, and he played bishop c8. Of course, it's pretty common for the Dutch for this Leningrad position, just give up the bishop. But usually you recapture with the queen on e6, and I thought if he played queen e7, that means he already wasted tempo, and also once you get the bishop, you are very safe with white, so you can try to squeeze this bishop pair advantage. So I was pretty sure that he's going to play bishop c8, and I just played knight c3, just normal development, knight a6, queen d2. So again, not so clear. Queen d2, queen c2. Well, they're both, I think, reasonable. My whole point of this, why I played knight g4, and let's say not knight d4. So I wanted to provoke h6. I just believed that once he plays h6, it's weakening light squares on the king side. So somewhere, once I strike e4, let's say, and recapture on e4 with the bishop, g6 will be weak. So that was my deep strategical idea. So, and I knew it probably would be very hard for him not to play h6, because he needs to get his bishop out. And if he plays bishop d7, there will be, of course, like rook d1 always, targeting d6. So he played h6. Yeah, to my great surprise, I discovered correspondence game. Like we discussed. So that means I probably played not so bad. But the game is 2006. Played in 2006. 2006 is something that I feel still can be improved. Still you can find improvements. Once it's, let's say, starting from 2012, that's already very tough tough task, like to find improvements or like to maybe even to refute lines. So I played knight f3. Well, there is another interesting plan. I mean, he just went knight h. Well, the player in this correspondence game went knight h3 and went rook d1. So that was something very concrete. I was unable to figure out that it's somehow forcing knight e4 and so on. I think I also believe that he might go bishop e6, but then maybe knight f4 followed by e4. So it's basically, it's a nice follow-up of the strategy of weakening g6, right? So I want to mention that if bishop e6, knight f4, bishop f7, and e4, and the whole point, if capture, eventually g6 is hanging, right? So, well, anyway, knight f3 felt like very natural for me. I felt I need knight on d4, bishop e6. Now it starts like really, really natural play. Besides one move that I felt it was very strange, he played rook f8 and not rook a8. And then when we discussed after the game, he mentioned that he was concerned about after rook a8, he was concerned about bishop a3 move because. I asked him, maybe you were worried about queen e3, so it seems like double attack. But the point that, of course, if I capture on a7, it's very problematic. My queen is misplaced. Knight c5 will come and rook a8. And I think there is only way for me to escape with knight a4, but this would ruin my pawn structure, or at least he can get a2 pawn here, right? So this is not something that I wanted to play. He mentioned a very interesting idea to play bishop a3, and then after knight c5 to take, and then queen a3. And then I remember how after the game we discussed queen e7, and then interesting knight a5 comes, and there is some interesting idea maybe to target the pawn with knight d3 eventually, because he cannot do b6, c6 is hanging. So this is very interesting, but you know, this is something that I checked like a little bit with computer. So there is tactical solution, rook d8, and then after queen c5, knight e7 jump. So the bishop, the knight is hanging. Bishop becomes very powerful, and obviously after queen f3, there is a discovery. So black is doing fine. But it's also felt not exactly correct to give up dark square bishop. After all, dark square bishop is very, very valuable piece in this position. So I guess it would be like a little bit similar play, but maybe he would have like extra tempo, because we'll see eventually he relocated his rooks. So he played rook f8. I went queen c2. Yeah, so this is something that I maybe regret a little bit not playing. Knight d4, bishop f7, e4 was kind of, I think, logical follow-up of my strategy. Something that I disliked in the game, but I don't remember right now. So I played queen c2. Why? Because knight c5 comes, and eventually knight e4, always an idea to attack my queen, so I decided prophylactically to remove the queen from d2 square. So he played knight c5. I think now everything is logical, knight d4. So now he can have f7 square for the bishop, which is very good for this type of positions. I played e3. So that was my idea. I felt like I'll place the pawn on e3, I will be solid, maybe double rooks, maybe one day before, depends. Or I'll have something connected with g6 weakness. So this is what worked in the game actually well. Queen e7, he played, seems natural because nothing to do on c7 right now. And also, I would like to mention the following idea for black. So I was always trying to watch out d5, if it works for him. Fortunately now, and then with the idea to recapture with the pieces. But it's impossible because knight is hanging. So eventually he has to go for isolated pawn, and that's not a great version of isolated pawn. So that's definitely an advantage for him. So I was trying to watch out this idea. Queen e7, in the beginning I thought, oh well, he's about to play d5, but then I noticed that after d5, the pin would be extremely annoying, not so easy to get rid of the pin because there is no b6, c6 would be hanging on c6. So, yeah, but he just kept improving, so it seems logical, rook e8. And I had this idea in mind, that was very important part of my plan. Knight e2 to transfer the knight to f4. So additional like attack on g6 pawn, so once I open up the position. He played rook a8, so this is what I meant when I said like maybe this is where he misplayed with the played rook fd8 because obviously he wasted time for this. Knight f4, and well, I guess here he committed some mistake, but the move is very natural. The move is very natural, so he's playing knight e4, he blocks my bishop. He wants to provoke f3, and then my bishop is closed on g2. I guess he should have just played maybe any other move, maybe, I don't know, a5 or something like that, or maybe some prophylaxis with king h7. So he played knight e4, and it looks like, you know, this position, if you show to Leningrad player, he will say, yeah, it's a great position. This is what I'm striving for in the opening, especially in this pawn structure. But the problem is h6 move. That's all about this. With the pawn on h7, black would be in perfect shape. So surprisingly, after f3, knight c5, g4, it was like just very, very powerful, and according to what I checked with the engine, like there is probably no defense for black. It's rather surprising. So eventually all my strategy worked perfect, like with provoking h6 and weakening g6. Yeah, so we were approaching time trouble, like although he was much lower on time, so he had to take. I took on g6. What I felt that he had to go queen d7, and I thought it would be very unclear position, because in the beginning I thought like I'll have to go f4 probably, and then he has temporary control over e4, so that will be very double-edged. I was ready for a big fight, mutual time trouble, but then I discovered knight h4. I discovered this move knight h4, actually securing a 5 square for one of my knights. And actually it's very powerful. And one of the variations that confirms this danger for black is that after gf3, I don't need even to recapture. I can go knight f5. I always tell my students, knight on f5, white knight on f5, or black knight on f4, it's semi-mate. So it's in most of the position, it's like give chances for the decisive attack, right? So knight f5, queen g2, and everything is hanging. It's just like everything. There is bishop f6, there is rook d6, so there is no defense. It's obviously hopeless. Yes, he played bishop g6. He played bishop g6, queen g6. Seems like there is some relief after queen straight. Nevertheless, knight f5 still very, very powerful. So d6 hanging, of course, I think like he cannot even allow capturing on g7 and having this pin. So he played bishop f8. I knew that at g4 probably would be very strong, but rook f1 looks just very natural. As I want gf3 and rook f3 and this position. Actually, not rook f3, bishop f3, I think. And this is very hard. He cannot get rid of this f-file pin. I mean, there is no way to untangle him. It's like king g6, then knight h4, I think. And it should be win. There is nothing he can do about this. Yeah. So, and basically, it's endgame, but all my pieces are optimally placed. So this is what I'm happy about. So he got like really, really low on time, and he played g3. It's not surprising because he didn't see defense, but that should supposed to be easily winning, so I just recaptured g3. He tried to create some counterplay, but I think like my position is very good, very positionally solid, so it was pretty easy conversion, I think. I played this bishop d4 move, provoke c5. I knew that c5 would block his bishop as well as potentially the square for the knight, so move bishop a1, knight b6, yeah, and then rook c1, and I was kind of fortunate because at some point I was already worried that I don't see how to stop his counterplay, and then I found this move rook f2. So the idea was, what was the idea? I think it's if rook d1, if rook d8, there is some move that actually it's bishop. This is what I found. Like when I started to calculate, I see, well, something counterplay. His threat is to take rook d2. What should I do here? I mean, but then I found bishop c3. With the point that if he takes king f2, now the pawn is untouchable. I have bishop f6, and the knight is hanging. And by doing this, I basically consolidate my position because my next move would be bishop f1 probably, and then I have not only extra pawn but also big positional advantage, obviously. So he just blundered with 94. I mean, he was down to maybe 5 seconds. Rook d1, but then just rook f1, so he cannot get my bishop, and he resigned. Like, overall, I have to admit, it's a very nice game. If one day I will publish the book with my best games, that would be definitely one of the games there.
Wow. Maybe we should switch back to see you. So I've got a little bit of reverb on my. There we are. Yeah, great game. And if you don't mind, if you happen to save the analysis you just did, maybe you could give that to us so we could put it up on the web to go with.
Oh yes, absolutely. No problem.
It's just speaking as a as a normal everyday chess player, it's interesting to see how someone of your abilities just thinks about things as we're looking at them. I mean, how you were talking about, well, this loses because of X, Y, and Z. Really, really instructively explained, and I like it because it wasn't, I mean, certainly the F3 G4 idea is really is very nice, but this is a game that I look at and I think, maybe someday if I work really, really hard, I mean, I could play a little bit like that. It was very logical, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and I appreciate that when I'm looking at a chess game. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so it worked well. It's unfortunately it's not always so easy in real chess. Sometimes it just doesn't work. But I mean, the strategy that basically I wanted to follow after knight g5 provoking h6 in this game, it's really worked perfectly for me.
Yeah, beautiful game, and thank you for sharing it with us. So we've been going for almost 40 minutes now, I think, so I don't want to take any more time of your day. But if anyone wants to get a hold of you for training or for questions, is there a website they can go to? Is there Facebook? What's your contact information?
Yes, definitely Facebook. I have my personal webpage. I have as well the page which is named Grandmaster Boris Avrukh. My email is very simple, Avrukh Boris at hotmail.com. So everyone welcome who is really wants to improve and have serious goals in chess. So I'm trying not to go for the beginner level, although I really enjoyed working with I had some nice story with a guy who was I think 900 rating, and the father said let's try, and so he's right now I think 1800, and it's a different player, of course. It's he was a beginner when we started. So yes, I'm so those two main channels, I think, Facebook and email, and I would be happy to help you if you need any help.
Excellent. One last question. So you've just played the Chicago Open. You've gotten your feet back in the tournament play. Should we be expecting any more tournament outings from you in the near future?
Yes, I definitely. I still have idea. I feel I need to be at least 2600. I feel it's unacceptable that I dropped about 20 something rating points. I mean, it's right now really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter for me. I feel like if I'll get to some good shape, I might get back all my rating points. So, well, there is nothing concrete because summer is coming. There are two serious camps that I will participate, actually. One's supposed to be with Anatoly Karpov, and I'm very excited about this.
Where is that?
It's in New York, last week of July.
Okay.
Yes. So the only question, I think there is some uncertainty about Karpov getting visa because of some political implications. I don't know, but his VIP visa is expired. So that's he had a VIP visa, but now... But regardless, as far as I know from the organizer, even if he's not coming in person, he will be running lectures, live streaming from Moscow.
Excellent. So who is running the camp, if anybody's interested?
It's Maxim Blugi from Manhattan. Okay. Yes. So I'm really looking forward to this camp. And of course, in 1 week, I will travel to Charlotte. We'll have an elite camp in Charlotte. It's a great place, great organization team. Peter, amazing work. So now it was so successful last year with me and Jacob Agor that they invite another coach, another famous coach, Michal Marin. So we have we have 3 groups of kids with very advanced ratings. So that will be a lot of fun, I guess.
This is at the Charlotte Chess Center?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Charlotte Chess Center in 1 week it starts. Maybe there are still some places. I don't know.
There may be. That's why, I figure we should plug them if we can.
Yes. And regarding my schedule, it's not clear about playing. So now I would be probably more focused on this web page. But I definitely, what I decided, I should go first for weekend tournament. So that's my decision.
All right. Well, keep the 9-day of the U.S. Open in the back of your mind. It'll be just like playing a nice civilized European tournament. You can just play one round a day, and
yes,
so the U.S. Open. I have to plug it since I work for U.S. Chess.
Is it not the Open where the first place gets you to
gets you a seat in the U.S. Championship?
U.S. Championship. Yeah, well, that was my dream once I came. That was my American dream once I came to US.
Well, it could still happen. I have to plug it now that I'm a US chess employee. So, yeah, maybe we'll see you there. But if not, we'll definitely see you at the board somewhere. And
yes.
Again, Grandmaster Avrukh, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. You've been very generous.
Thank you very much, Joe, for having me. It was a pleasure. It was a very nice professional interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop recording, and we'll be good. So hang on.
Bye.